It's Thursday, the 22nd of September 2022, and welcome to the Water Action Platform. Today, we have a wonderful programme in which we will attempt to unlock some of the mysteries around water treatment, water technology investment. And we have an update from our roving reporter, Yang Villa, direct from the conference floor at the IWA Congress. And we have an "and finally" story which could provide an astonishing leap in efficiency for any process which requires heated water. But first, I want to acknowledge our sponsors, without whom we would not be here today, and neither would the trial reservoir. I should also draw your attention to a new sponsor, Halion. Formerly known as GSK, Halion, with their tagline, "For Health with Humanity," are a perfect sponsor for the Reservoir Initiative, and we're delighted to have them join us. Thank you. Now, I'd like to start today's broadcast by sharing some thoughts about the climate crisis. The climate crisis. You have probably seen this article on social media in recent weeks. It dates back to 1912 and is from a New Zealand newspaper. It shows that 110 years ago, we categorically knew that burning fossil fuels would negatively impact our climate. Now, whilst researching the validity of that article, I discovered it was actually a republication of a story from an even earlier 1911 article published in the magazine Popular Mechanics. Looking even deeper, I found that 50 years prior to this, in 1856, at the 10th annual meeting for the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Joseph Henry from the Smithsonian Institute read a paper written on behalf of Mrs. Eunice Foote, which highlighted the climate risk. Now, quite why Mrs. Foote didn't read it herself is beyond me, but I suspect it had something to do with her having a uterus and Joseph Henry not. Here is the text from the 1857 report of that conference. Now, note the opening paragraph. "Science has no country and no sex. The sphere of woman embraces not only the beautiful and the useful, but the true." Now, this article shows that 166 years ago, we realised that burning fossil fuels could negatively impact the climate. Now, that was 7 generations ago. We cannot leave this for the 8th generation to sort. Here is the most important graphic in the world. It shows the steady, unrelenting increase in atmospheric carbon, which has happened over the past 50 years. We need to be crystal clear about the situation. We cannot mince or dilute our words. If we do not stop the rise on this graph, then it's game over for life on Earth as we know it. The stakes could not be higher. Now, I know we're all worried about the climate crisis. Whether you're a grandparent entering your final chapter or a child at the start of the novel that will become your life, it is impossible not to feel a sense of angst and fear. We deal with it in different ways, some through anger, some through denial. Some good people do it through a concerted and significant change in how they live their lives. But yet, no matter what we do, it still feels like it's just too little, insufficient to make a meaningful impact. Now, let's be honest, it feels like we are trapped on a course that we cannot correct. Well, I refuse to accept that. So today, I want to share with you a story of hope. It's a story of incredible courage and resolve, and it happened almost 200 years ago. It stands as a shining example of how we could behave, heck, how we must behave if we are to resolve this problem. It is the story of John Snow, a physician living in London in the 1850s. Now, at that time, cholera epidemics were a regular feature, sweeping through the city every decade or so, killing thousands of people and causing a wave of fear. The belief at the time was that the disease was spread by bad air or miasma. Dr. Snow was not convinced. He was the first man to join the dots quite literally and show that the cholera outbreak was waterborne, that the contamination was coming from a local water pump. He gathered the data, he cleansed it, he tabulated it, he pored over it. And then he produced this brilliant dot map showing how the cholera cases aggregated around the water pump. This was possibly the first bit of applied GIS, and man, it was brilliant. It was absolutely enlightening. Perhaps, just perhaps, you and I might have done something similar. Perhaps we too would have studied the data intelligently, mapped it out, drawn the same conclusions. But let's be honest, we probably would have written a report or published a paper, sat back and waited for the recognition and the glory. Well, not Jon Snow. He did so much more. Now, most people know the above story, but there are two key features which get forgotten in most tellings, and they are critical and vitally important in relation to how we must act today. Firstly, in producing his dot map, he spotted two outliers, two cases which did not fit into the water pump contamination theory. Did he abandon his theory? Did he cast his work aside? No. He went out and personally investigated those anomalies, going into the streets and knocking on the doors. Now, this would have been both physically uncomfortable and opened him up to potential ridicule. But he was after the truth. Now, what he found was that one outlier was a lady who liked the water from the suspect water pump so much that she made the catastrophic decision of insisting her servant collected the water from that site. The other anomaly? Well, that was a friend of the first lady who happened to make an equally catastrophic decision to visit her friend for tea one afternoon. Now, Dr. Snow's actions, which went beyond what most people would do, cemented his theory. He could have stayed in his surgery, safely cushioned from the outside world. His findings led him to lobby hard and vociferously the local council. He persuaded, he cajoled, he bullied them into removing the water pump handle and thus taking it out of action. Now, this action is widely credited as ending the outbreak. It saved hundreds of lives. Now, the second unknown part of this story, however, is that Dr. Snow didn't get any glory. In fact, he was ridiculed. This cartoon is taken from the Sunday Times, and it doesn't celebrate him as most people assume. It mocks him. He died a couple of years later, aged 45 in 1858, and it was a further decade before his detractors finally acknowledged that he'd been right. So what can we learn from this that can help us with the climate crisis? Well, we need to show the same ruthless diligence when examining the data. We need to have the same resilience, the same burning desire not to accept the status quo, to take action, to go far beyond the remit of our day job. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we need to have the same astonishing courage. Snow was brave beyond imagination, prepared to forego glory and absorb public humiliation if that was what was required. Snow saved a few hundred lives. If we act now, we can save millions. I believe that today we need at least 100,000 Jon Snows. Are you one of them? Over the next few months, I want to showcase here stories from organisations who are channeling the spirit of Jon Snow and doing things that would make a real difference. If that's you, or you know someone who's being like Jon, please let me know. We need to share best practice as widely as possible. Now, let's try and unpick one of those great water sector mysteries. What is it that makes the water technology investor invest? What excites them and why? What are the key differences between a family fund and an institutional fund? And how should that change my pitch if I'm asking them for money? Well, in this next section, we'll hear from two of the leading water technology investors, Dr. Reinhard Hübner from the family fund Skion and Alex Kral from Pure Terra Ventures. I spoke to them separately, but we've blended the interviews to create a single story.
I'm Reinhard Hübner. I have an original background in manufacturing logistics, and since 2006, I'm involved in the water industry, and today I'm the CEO of Skion Water.
My name is Alex Kral. I'm originally from Canada. I now live in the Netherlands. Been in the water industry for more than 25 years, mostly in senior management roles. Predominantly in my career was, or a chord that I kind of stuck with, was the introduction of early stage technologies and bringing those to the market.
As a family office investment company, we have the advantage that we can invest with a 20, 30-year time horizon and can build strategies to develop our portfolio with such a horizon in mind. This is how we built Skion Water since 2010, and today Skion Water is roughly 3,200 people and roughly 900 million euros in turnover, building treatment plants for municipal and industrial customers across the world.
Pure Terra Ventures was a venture capital fund that was formed to invest in early stage technologies. I'd like to see, revenues of 750,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that area. But not only that, we look for technologies that can make a paradigm shift to the status quo, something that improves the current treatment process, whether that's from alpha to omega or a complete treatment process, or whether it's a bolt-on that can offer certain advantages or better quality water or wastewater.
One example of our technology investments is the Danish company Sembrane that manufactures a silicon carbide UF membrane. We first started as a customer, became a strategic partner, and in the end invested to fund their capacity growth. And this is how we engage with young technology companies, not just by putting money in, but by also working with them to bring their product into the market.
As an institutional fund, my humble opinion is that we're able to be incredibly agile, and we're able to bring a lot more to the equation than traditional VC or family funds. The other end of the spectrum being that as an institutional fund, we are closed-ended, meaning that our fund life comes to an end in 10 years. So although, we do consider the water industry more of a marathon than a sprint, we do have to move these technologies fairly quickly to an exit. We answer to a series of LPs that are looking for a return, and we have a finite timeline to get that done.
I see two big challenges in investing in water at the moment. One is that there's a lot of what I call stupid money chasing too little good targets, because all people now try to invest into water because they think it supports their ESG strategy. And this is actually dangerous because many of them don't understand the complexities of the water sector. The second major challenge is exactly these complexities, with very long decision-making processes, government procurement activities making innovation difficult to adopt, and also a sector where laws of nature give you limits in how innovative you can be, when at the end thousands and thousands of tons of water have to be pumped around as part of any treatment process.
The challenges in the water sector are, many. There's a lot working against early stage technologies, or technologies that come in to make a shift or to change what's legacy or currently installed. One of the big things are that the uptake, it's too slow. Whether you look at that in an industrial end user or a municipal end user, this is one of the things, and just to give kudos to Isle, when they developed the trial reservoir and they brought that to the table, we had adopted that immediately. Usually these tech companies, they make the contact with a potential end user. They go in, they pilot, they're in, it does everything that it's supposed to do. The end user, they look at it, they thank them for their time, it did, everything to a T, and they send them out as quickly as they arrive. Programs like the trial reservoir, they have the ability to circumnavigate that, where it closes the loop through the purchasing. A lot of the big challenges, when you look at it more with a wider brush, it's the financial end of it as well. Like if you look at the municipal end of it as clients, just having that funding available to be able to, complete a treatment plant and be able to put all of the equipment in is rare. So to do something on the CapEx side that's more expensive is extremely difficult. Currently, a lot of early stage technologies are more CapEx heavy, but on the OpEx side have a tendency to give that payback. On the industrial side is really where, those challenges begin to, let's say, peel away a little bit, where they're a little bit faster to take technology in-house, evaluate it, and deploy it. A lot of that has to do with the regulation that drives it, but a lot of it has to do with they're a little bit more open-armed to taking, let's say, a risk on technologies.
Everybody can every day read in the newspaper at the moment what is going on in the water sector. We have drought situations in many countries, also in countries like Germany or the UK, where you wouldn't expect this just based on your travel weather forecast. And this opens up massive opportunities for closing loops, recycling water, and finding more efficient ways to use water. And at the same time, regulatory standards for discharge get increasingly stringent, and we have to worry about removing micropollutants and other harmful substances. So the opportunity to develop more technologies, deploy more technologies, and also deploy different business models to help end users overcome the challenges of investing into water solutions is massive.
So the opportunities in the water sector, I really think that as an overall industry, the information exchange is readily available. You may look at the globe as a vast area, but I like to say that the water industry is incestuous. People don't leave it. They just change the color of their polo shirt and move from one company to another company, but very open. If one, a municipality in, let's say, Singapore was looking for information from, the Texas Wastewater Authority, they wouldn't have any problem getting it. They'd just have to get on email or the phone, and that information is shared. So being able to leverage off of that, I believe it opens the door for just an immense amount of information share, and being able to understand what the different geographical areas around the world are actually doing with technology and what step changes they're making.
What we run into at the moment is a big challenge on the trade-off between climate and water. Water scarcity is typically addressed by recycling wastewater, desalinating more seawater, and at the same time we try to decarbonize the water sector to contribute to combating climate change. But all these more intense treatment processes require more energy, and hence increase the energy intensity of the water sector. So without proper availability of CO2-free electricity, none of this will work out. And at the same time, climate change is also the cause of the water scarcity in many places. So there's a bit of hen and egg problem here, but it is a major challenge where combating climate change could dramatically improve the situation of the water sector, but it will not be fast enough. So we have to also find alternative water sources and recycling and all these things that we talk about that are more energy intensive.
For us, what we would like to see is more people get involved, especially investors, in the water space specifically, to be able to elevate water where it belongs, so that it not only has more of an emotional attachment, and be able to get more people in that ring of investing and bringing these technologies to life.
I think we all agree on the challenges, and we have some sort of agreement in many places on parts of the puzzle for the solutions, but we really have to get our act together as a sector to get innovation deployed and technologies implemented so that we can improve the footprint of the water sector, both on the water side and on the energy side. This is the challenge of our generation, because if we don't fix it, the next generation will be in very scarce desert-like environments in many parts of the world.
Our sector needs thoughtful, engaged, informed investors. Thank you, Reinhard. Thank you, Alex, for sharing so openly. Now, last week, the world of water gathered in Copenhagen, Denmark for the IWA Congress. At the Innovation Pavilion, 10 technology startups and scale-ups were showcased, and we had our roving reporter from the Philippines, Yang Villa, on site ready to capture the highlights. Here is his rather exciting 3-minute report from the Congress floor.
3, 2, 1, mabuhay! Come on, people, energy. Again, 3, 2, 1, mabuhay! Thank you.
Welcome to the World Water Congress!
I'm here with our friends from Card Technologies, and I want to know from them, hi, what do you think of the World Water Congress so far?
Far, it's starting very well because we had very interesting contacts and lots of people interested in our technology. And
It's your first time in an IWA Congress. Do you see the possibility of new markets opening up for you?
in this congress, we have met a new. We open up to a new countries like Denmark, Sweden, and Belgium, and all these Scandinavian countries. It is our first time here, so we are very happy to be here.
Chris, what is this gadget you've got here?
So this here is a early detection and monitoring system for harmful algae blooms. So it'll be able to notify you when the values are getting too high, and that's going to affect your operations.
Hey, Rick, could you tell us what is the highlight of the Congress for you?
I think it was one of the very big bulk chemical suppliers, European bulk chemical suppliers coming by. They sell vast amounts of this chemical for water treatment, and recognizing that this is going to disrupt their business, and how do they embrace our technology, which is replacing it in their own business model.
Work in adjacent industries, we work across the mining sector, we work across agriculture and other industries to identify leading edge practices in technology, and not limited to technology and innovation, with the view of creating new value in the industry.
Yang, it's really useful for the Southeast Water team that their technologies, IOTA exposes them to the rest of the water industry by obviously commercializing it.
Thanks, Ail, for inviting us to this Iowa Innovation Pavilion. It was a great opportunity to meet all the people working in the capacity building sector.
The transformational potentials by having online monitoring and distributed monitoring for different types of organisms, bacteria, algae, things which are really important. We've seen revolutions in this space, but we've kind of swayed with them here on this. What I loved is also that we had some technologies which utilize AI and machine learning to sort of show the advances in digitization within the sector which can also happen. So we've got this nice blend at this point in time. Really hoping that having this point in Copenhagen helps springboard them into the sector, because we know we need them.
Thanks must go to the sponsors for the Innovation Pavilion, namely Grundfos, Royal Haskoning DHV and IOTA. And I've been reliably told that those jumping into the water at the end of that video were real Congress attendees. Copenhagen Bay has a sort of bathable, open for public swimming area, and Yang tells me that he did pack his swimming trunks, but in the end he didn't feel his tropical body could cope with the Scandinavian cold. We now come to our Water Action Platform Star section. And you may recall this video clip from the children's classic Ice Age, with a few words dubbed by this week's star.
Hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills.
When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
Now, that was the voice of Margaret Williams, the Strategic Waste Planning Lead at Severn Trent Water. Margaret is a WapWood star because, according to everyone that I've spoken to, she is one of those quiet, diligent heroes who, day in, day out, works to keep the water sector delivering. Everyone I've spoken to describes Margaret as a dedicated professional focused on implementing tangible change within the water industry. Now that's great to hear, but for her to be a WapWood star, we need examples. And so I've been told that Margaret has been inspirational in coordinating the preparatory work for the forthcoming Environment Act. Now this act is not yet in place, but by working in a collegiate and thoughtful way involving stakeholders from both within Severn Trent and the supply chain, Margaret has ensured that her utility is being proactive rather than reactive. Now that's a good story, but I've got another example, which for me was the clincher. Now one of Severn Trent's suppliers, a company called EMS, told me that Margaret played an intrinsic role in implementing their product, Centaur. It's an automated system for managing urban flood risks and CSO spills. Now, why is this important? Well, like most new technology, ensuring Centaur delivered its full potential required more than just setting it up and letting it do its thing. It required a bit of behavioural change from operators and, according to EMS, Margaret recognised this and drove the necessary change internally, quietly and diligently making the water sector better. We need more heroines like Margaret. And finally, who wants an over-engineered kitchen? Well, the following story just goes to show what happens when clever academics get involved in the home. So folks at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, have developed a much more efficient way to boil water. Their new method uses a sort of special surface treatments to increase the heating efficiency. Now basically it's all about bubbles. If there are lots of bubbles, then the boiling's very efficient, as long as there aren't too many bubbles that they coalesce. It's this sort of delicate balance. So to make it more efficient when you boil water, the MIT researchers looked at adding dents to the heated surface. Now this allowed them to control the bubbles, confining them to their indentations. Now here on the right hand side you can see a scanning electron microscope image of the hierarchically structured surface that they've created. What does this mean in practice? Well, they've been able to improve the efficiency of boiling by a staggering 389%. That's almost 4 times as good as currently. The enhanced boiling performance promises significant energy savings for any applications that require hot water, such as steam power plants or desalination, or indeed simply making a faster cup of tea. Now, with that, we come to the end of this week's broadcast. I thank our contributors, sponsors and partners. Next month, our broadcast will be on Thursday, the 20th of October, and I hope to share then the first story where someone, somewhere in the global water sector has channeled the spirit of Jon Snow and gone that extra mile to mitigate the carbon crisis. If you have suggestions of what or who might make a compelling story, including if it's your own organisation or work that you personally have been doing, please let me know. Now is not the time to be shy in stepping forward. We need to share best practice as widely as possible. Keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.